Hi, I'm Anvi Brady, and I'll be reading from my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. Let me put my glasses on. Those men that didn't have a high school diploma or GED had to attend classes to get their GED. The classes we took covered a lot of military areas. We took classes in Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, drill and ceremony, first aid, camouflage, weapons, etc. During our first week, we were marched to the armory to be assigned a weapon, an M16 rifle. We were given a card to fill out with our name, rank, and company. It had the number of our rifle on it. When we went to collect our rifle, we were to leave the card in its place. We collected the card when we returned our rifle to the armory. In our classes, we learned how and when to salute indoors and outdoors. We learned how to throw hand grenades. We learned by using blue practice hand grenades. We practiced marching for drill and ceremony. We had to practice double time, forward march, halt. We practiced use of camouflage with the use of camouflage sticks and the environment. We learned how to make a foxhole. The DS showed us that a foxhole is the width of two helmets lengthwise, the length of two rifles laid down end to end, and as deep as the tallest soldier. Sandbags were used to allow the shortest soldier to see out of the foxhole. We weren't allowed to dig the foxholes. The DS told us they had enough foxholes on Fort Jackson and didn't need any more. One thing the drill sergeants told us about foxholes was to always look in a foxhole before entering one, as there could be snakes in the foxholes. They also told us when out in the field to look in sleeping bags before getting in them to sleep at night. Also to check our clothes, especially our boots, because of snakes and other creatures in the morning. We were taught about reporting indoors and guard duty. In fact, the company had to pull guard duty in pairs one night. We were given a building to guard, and each shift was 2 hours long. We couldn't leave guard duty until we were relieved of duty by next shift coming on, or the DS relieved us of duty. My partner and I had to guard the medical clinic. We all had our weapons with an empty clip. We were told this was because some soldiers in previous cycles almost shot an officer while on guard duty. We marched to cadence and marched everywhere. The drill sergeant would call cadence, and we had to respond or repeat what he sang. There were different cadences. Cadences were like left, 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 your military left. Two little ladies running down the strip, sing, I want to be an airborne ranger. If I were a tree frog and you were a toad, we'd do it in the road. One day, while marching to another sexist cadence, the men weren't repeating the cadence while the women were. Our DS called out the men for letting the women outsing them. He told them that the women should be embarrassed to repeat this cadence, but the women were louder than the men. He told them they should be ashamed. First march we went on to arrange. When we stopped, the DS told us to go into the forest to go to the bathroom. Women on the right side and men on the other side. One little girl asked the DS if there were bathrooms in the forest. He told her yes, all the trees. He told us to hold onto our weapon as we relieved ourselves. He told us you never leave a weapon unattended. One day the battalion went on a march. We marched with our backpacks fully loaded. As we were marching, I noticed a girl from another company had fallen out of formation. Her backpack had fallen off and she was having trouble getting it back up on her back. I fell out of formation to help her put on her backpack. As soon as I helped her, I went in to formation in a different company than mine. I was advised by the DS to catch up to my company. I have a long gait and I walk fast. I quickly marched back to my company. After a few weeks, I started to get sick. I started throwing up breakfast before we even started PT. It was constantly going from air conditioning, and the heat outside made me sick. Temperatures ranged between 100 degrees and 110 degrees. I went on sick call, and the sergeant running sick call took my vital signs. She took my temperature twice because it was 103 degrees. She asked how come my temperature was so high. I told her I didn't know. She gave me a call back and sent me back to duty. Off and on for a week, I went on sick call and was told I was fine. Problem was, I was fine in the morning, but by the afternoon, I would be running a temperature. Some days, the DS would tell us we were marching to range one. As we would get close to range one, he would halt us. He would then tell us we were marching to the wrong range. We would have to bow face and double time it to the appropriate range. We would practice our shooting at targets on the range. The range sergeant would give us the rules of the range. We would practice shooting at targets from different stances: prone, kneeling, foxhole, etc. I mistakenly followed my brother Bob's advice. I shot my rifle right-handed instead of left-handed as I usually shot. He told me the addition of the bullet ejector to the rifle wouldn't work. He said if I shot left-handed, the bullets would still hit me. We would go to the woods to practice hand grenades. One girl was so bad at throwing hand grenades, she could barely throw them. They showed us how to aim and throw the hand grenades. The DS worked with this girl to get her so she could qualify with hand grenades. Eventually, she could throw them pretty far. After a few weeks, we were given weekend passes. We could go around base in our Class A uniform. We still had to check the fire guard duty roster at the orderly room. It was great to go around base and have a little fun. I had fire guard duty that evening at 2400 hours. I got back to the barracks early so I could get some sleep before I pulled duty. I was awakened by a female soldier. She told me it was time for me to report for duty. I got dressed and asked her about the soldier on fire guard duty who was supposed to wake me. She told me she was passed out on the stairs. I saw the girl as I left to report for duty. She was out cold. I reported for duty and went back to the barracks. We tried to get the girl into her bed. I made the rounds, shined my boots. At the end of my shift, I woke the next person scheduled for duty. On Saturday, the DS came in to have us practice marching. He told me that I marched like a duck. We spent several hours marching. Another weekend, we were to go to a U.S. show. On the Saturday we were supposed to go, the DS asked those who didn't want to go. The DS asked who didn't want to go. About 3 to 4 soldiers raised their hand. One DS had to stay behind at the company to keep an eye on those soldiers. We rode a bus to the USO. The show was wonderful and everyone had fun. Several days later, we found out that one of our female soldiers got into trouble while we were at the USO. The DS that had stayed behind was making his rounds. He knocked on the door of the female barracks and announced, "Male on the floor." He then entered. Excuse me. He then entered the barracks. While he was inspecting the barracks, he found one of the female trainees in the shower with the company cook. The company cook was permanent party. The DS told us the cook was going to Leavenworth and the trainee was getting an Article 15. The cook's punishment was more severe because he was permanent party and fraternized with the basic trainee. They assumed that she was coerced by him because of his rank and permanent status. We trained in the woods at a live fire training site. We trained using dummy hand grenades and blanks in the M16 rifles. We practiced cover and concealment, covering enemy fire, and throwing hand grenades into a bunker. We took turns calling to our partner to let them know that either we were moving or covering them. Sometimes instead of BT, we went through an obstacle course. We grounded our shirts and caps. We had to crawl under barbed wire and run across logs. It was impossible to get red, the red Georgia clay out of our white t-shirts. I also had the joy of being assigned KP, Kitchen Patrol. We spent the day peeling potatoes and anything else the kitchen staff required of us. The girl that was assigned KP with me asked the staff if she could go to the barracks to go to the bathroom. They allowed her to leave. They sent me to find her when she didn't come back after a half hour. I entered the barracks. There she was, by her bunk bed, asleep, standing up. I woke her up when we returned to duty. Staff punished her by making her clean the grease pits. We were assigned gas masks, which we signed for. I had to have special lenses that could be inserted into the gas mask. The lenses were a pain, as sometimes they would come out of their holes and try to poke me in the eye. We were all supposed to go through a special building filled with gas, with our gas masks on. I was told I was exempt because I had bronchitis. One of our male soldiers ended up with an Article 15. It seems that after he signed out our weapons, he decided to take a shower in the middle of the day. He entered the barracks, laid the weapon on his bed, and went to take a shower. While he was in the shower, the DS came in and found the weapon unsecured on the bed and the soldier in the shower. 1 week later, Delta Company was assigned flag detail. The soldiers were rotated for the detail. We had to raise and lower the flag according to protocol. One day before the company went on a march, the DS announced that everyone was expected to keep up, no falling back, or else. I struggled to keep up, and I did. When we returned to the company, the DS commanded, "At ease." I wasn't feeling good, and I sat down during mail call. I got up to get my mail. The DS dismissed the company and walked me back to the orderly room. He called the hospital for an ambulance. The DS told the hospital how sick I had been and that the sick coal nurse had done nothing for me. He told them he wanted me taken care of and that he didn't want a runaround. When I arrived at the hospital, a doctor and her assistant examined me. The doctor was a captain. She asked me questions. When I started to answer starting with "ma'am," she commanded there was no need to call her ma'am. She took my temperature. It was 101 degrees. She admitted me to the hospital immediately. It was horrible timing as our company was going to the range the next day to qualify with the M16. And that is all I'm going to read for today. I hope everybody has a great day. And thank you for listening to me.